the opportunities for the next generation to create the next best way to get around. And I don't think we all want to ride around on scooters in the middle of December, although they are very cute. We want to do something that's practical. You do? I took a ride on a scooter the other day. What's that?
He's a Vespa guy.
He's a Vespa guy. I hope it's green or yellow. Orange. Goes without saying. One of the other things I think that people throughout the district are speaking to is just the sorry state of our economy and how nervous everybody is about what comes next. You know, is it a mortgage crisis, or is it the cost of college loans that's going to create a crisis for the next generation? Or is it just the way we spend money and say, we're going to give you an incentive, and we're going to give you $600, and you're going to feel better. And please, take that $600 and run right down to Walmart and spend that money. And that's supposed to be a stimulus for our economy. When we were talking about this a couple of months ago, most of the voters with whom I spoke said, we understand this is not a really good idea. We understand this is more debt. And if I get that check, and probably most of you around this room didn't, or this patio didn't, but if I get that check, I'm going to put it in my savings account, or I'm going to pay down my credit cards. This is really not a stimulus. What we have to do is figure out how to invest. I can't remember who it was who was talking about the pandering that usually goes on in a political campaign, and I do my best not to. But the idea of a gas tax holiday is one of those things that does pander to voters. You know, oh, wouldn't it be great? Yeah, we pay too much in taxes. Well, I won't disagree that we do pay a lot in taxes, but we want things out of those taxes. When we give that money over to the federal government in the form of the gas tax, that money's supposed to be spent on something important to us. It's supposed to be spent making sure that our roads and bridges are safe, so that when we're going to work, or our children or nieces and nephews are going to school, that the bridge doesn't collapse, or that we don't have to realign our cars all the time. This is where we invest our money, and the jobs that are created through federal investment in our highways are jobs here in this country. They can't be outsourced, and they're a necessity. They're an absolute necessity. So the things that we do in public life, we want them to make sense. And when you look at Washington right now, it's not something that makes a lot of sense. And, you know, I try to relate that to how things went when I came to City Hall and said, well, I'm going to run it like a business person, and I'm going to tell people what's going on. Well, that's sort of the ideal. It's an imperfect model, I understand. But you have to sometimes tilt at the windmill. You have to be out there saying, I'm going to take that leap of faith, and I'm going to say people will believe that we do want to brush the stink off what happens in government. Because we always shake our fingers and say, oh, those darn politicians, but what do we do? My friend Janny, where is she? She always makes fun of me. She says, you really like this. And I do like this, because I still believe that at the end of the day, we all hope for a better day. And if you don't do something about it, you give up. And I'm not ready to give up, either on our local government, our state government, and now our federal government. I'm really a believer. And I know, because you've turned out here too, that you still believe that we can change government. So I want to talk about the things that you want to talk about and answer any questions that you might have. So we can talk about bats in Garrett County, or energy policy, or war, or something else.
Tell us about the bats.
The bats! Well, the bats in Garrett County are a very integral part of their economy. You might not know this, because the bats eat the insects. The insects eat the patrons who come for the tourist opportunities. So they don't want the bats to go away, and apparently the bats fly in the turbines, and that's bad for bats. There are other opportunities. What you really want to know is that, you know, when it comes to our energy policy, there have to be more options. We're no dummies here. We've got BP Solar. BP Solar is great, but we haven't invested enough to make that get to us in the market in an affordable way. You know, if you look at how new construction might go, where are we going to get the money that is going to be the thing that incents people to make that step? Say the back of this house could have a solar panel and take care of that air conditioner that you just turned off. But you know, the rest of us, we don't have $30,000 sitting in our bank accounts that we want to spend on this. We have to figure out a way, and I know that the state of Maryland did a good job trying to make that step. But until we get it to a larger position in the market, it's going to be hard for us to do it. People have been looking at wind power for a small community, even cul-de-sacs, where one person will put it in their yard and they'll all feed off of it. Now, you have to have a pretty good gauge of wind, and I'm not the scientist that will gauge that. We'll leave it to the experts. But the idea that we look at all opportunities, you know, I'm very lucky that there's a fellow who works for NIST who's offered me some advice and opinions. And he tells me how much the fund for getting the market programs out there is shrinking. In the last 10 years, it's gone down to, about 70%. So just at a time when we need to be investing in non-oil and gas opportunities for energy, we have shrunk that investment. Roscoe took a couple of silly votes on that, and one of the recent ones, one of the older ones 3 years ago, was being the swing vote to give the Bush energy policy the victory and the opportunity for the oil and gas companies to get their tax breaks. The tax breaks really haven't been working for us too well, and you know, I'm happy if any of you own oil and gas company stocks, but chances are that hasn't made you wealthy in and of itself. $25 million in tax cuts led to $25 billion in tax cuts led to them getting $100 billion in profits last year alone. First quarter of this year was right on schedule, maybe a little bit ahead of that. The problem is they don't need to produce more because they're making more profits without lifting another finger. And what is their incentive to run out of their product more quickly? They have no incentive to do that. So what we have to do is be the creative consumers that we are and be conservative in how we use our gasoline and take our trips in that way, but also figure out the best ways to invest in, by voting, in creative opportunities. And I think that's one of the reasons that I am so excited that both Senator Clinton and Barack Obama believed in investing in renewables. Is it solar? Is it wind? Is it biofuels? Is it nuclear? Yes, it's all of these things. We've closed off our minds because we've fallen for the advertising programs. Who's doing the advertising right now on the radio and TV? You listen to WTOP or NPR in the morning. WTOP does an ad that says, you know, if you own stock, you are making profits with oil and gas companies. So they're not the bad guys. They're doing what they do. But we as consumers can drive the solutions a little more quickly. And I think this election is about that. Recently, Congressman Bartlett said it's okay to drill in Anwar. He had a long-standing opinion against that for its environmental hazard and risk, and also because there was such a small quantity. We've already talked a little bit about it, but what makes you change your mind in such a dramatic way? I mean, it's really a black or white issue. In the same week that the Bush administration says the polar bear is an endangered species, it's what a friend of ours will call delicious irony. You know, the polar bear, and we're going to start drilling and have just a small amount of environmental degradation. This is the kind of stuff that you were in Antarctica. I know there are no polar bears there, but I'm aware of my geography there. My teachers were good at that. But the idea just doesn't make any sense, because this is the time that we can collectively push towards another solution. one of the issues